This week's reading from Rays of the One Light by Swami Kriyananda is entitled First Things First. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. That expression, first things first, is a piece of counsel often given to students of business techniques. It is the advice of practicality to those who aspire to worldly success. But according to the Hermetic doctrine, as above, so below, that which works best in one level of life is often the best guide to what will work best on every other level. If a person is true to his highest priorities, he will generally find that his other needs are fulfilled naturally as well. This is true certainly of the search for God. One of the greatest sayings of Jesus Christ was this simple sentence in the Gospel of St. Matthew. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Paramahansa Yogananda gave his elder brother Ananta a wonderful lesson in this truth. It was Ananta who had captured him and brought him back from his flight to the Himalayas, described by Yogananda in Autobiography of a Yogi. In Yogananda's book, we read how Ananta later challenged him in the city of Agra to pit his divine faith against such practical worldly considerations as the need for earning a living. Fearless before that challenge, the young aspirant agreed to go by train without any money to the nearby town of Brindaban, not to miss a single meal in Brindaban, and to find his way back to Agra without begging and without in any other way asking for help. In one of the most thrilling chapters in the book, Yogananda fulfilled all the conditions of the test. Yogananda continued the account. As the tale was unfolded, my brother turned sober, then solemn. The law of demand and supply reaches into subtler realms than I had supposed. Ananta spoke with a spiritual enthusiasm never before noticeable. I understand for the first time your indifference to the vaults and vulgar accumulations of the world. Late as it was, my brother insisted that he receive Diksha into Kriya Yoga. As the Bhagavad Gita puts it in the 9th chapter, those who worship lesser gods go to their gods, but those who worship me come to me. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om.
To the brave few souls who have made it, and the disciples to be who have braved it also. So, one of my joyous childhood memories I remember is about warm rain. And so Chennai is so great because the rain is always warm. And although you all might not feel it's warm, but for us, I grew up where it snowed. So, but I remember maybe 5 of us, I would have been 5 years old, 4.5 years old. And for some reason, our parents let us just go off and play, and we were at the school playground. And it started raining really hard. And it was summertime, so it was warm where I was. And we were at the school, so it was a huge structure that all its rain drain pipes were all accumulating in one big giant drain pipe that was gushing out because it was raining. So we all just had so much fun at that rain pipe, just splashing each other and making each other completely wet. And it was only afterward, and muddy, and then stomping through all the mud puddles and everything. Only afterwards thinking, am I going to get in trouble? And it was odd. And I remember feeling some kind of grace, and I wasn't in tune with God's grace at the time, but I remember feeling kind of loved and protected. And when I went home, it's like my mother didn't even notice, you know? And I just remember that. It was such a nice time with warm rain. I've always loved warm rain. When we took our honeymoon in Hawaii, which is like Chennai weather, and for some reason tropical has always really been my favorite weather. So when it rains and it's tropical, that's great. But then it's fine for us. We live here. But you have to go through the flooded streets. I thought, the worst that can happen is the streets are flooded. You'll just have to stay longer. So that's okay. Then we'll have you. Today's reading with the phrase, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you," is first of all, it's an easy phrase to remember. And so many people know this, just seek ye first. Even though it's from the Bible, and over here it's more Bhagavad Gita. And so, but still, seek ye first. We all know this. And I've been thinking, I was asking Dharmarajan last night, what was it for you that made you realize that you were trusting God more? Because in order to be able to trust God in our lives and put his desires above ours and his guidance above ours, it's a process we go through. It's not just suddenly, okay, now I truly trust, and then suddenly you lose a job and it's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And we go everywhere but God to find that job. And that's when it's tested. So we go through trusting and then tested. Trusting and tested. And as life progresses, we trust more deeply. We may get tested more deeply too. Because God wants us to be absolutely sure that when we are ready to merge with him, that's what we want 100%. That's the game here on earth. In order to attain yoga, in order to attain union, we need to have that desire for God, body, mind, and soul, more deeply than any other desire. And it's that desire for the one that will burn through all the other desires and leave them behind so that we can attain that one desire. And Dharmaraja was saying, really Swamiji's life was a big part of gathering faith and devotion and all that. Being, hearing him talk, reading his books, and thank goodness, almost everything he did publicly has been recorded, videotaped, put in book form. We have it now. And so, what was it in him that when he read Autobiography of a Yogi, he took the bus directly to Los Angeles, across the country, 3,000 miles or 5,000 miles? Do you remember? 3,000? Thank you. 3,000 miles across the country. And there was something in him that he trusted that this was what he needed to do. And very often we build our faith in God on miracles. It's like, I prayed for this, and then God gave it to me. Isn't that great? And it is, because, oh, okay. But, or even God knew there was a little desire in my heart, and then he gave it to me. Very often we notice those things, and those are good. Sometimes we can kind of think, but I prayed the other day and I didn't get anything back for that. And we get kind of a Vaishya consciousness around our prayers. But there's not only that miracle habit or consciousness that I did a miracle, I prayed for a miracle, or this happened and a miracle happened, and therefore, wow, God must care. You know, those miracles help us feel God cares, and that good things can happen to me by the grace of God, not just by my own desires. So miracles have their place. But then there's also, well, everything can be called a miracle, but I'm going to delineate just a little bit. Because when you look at this world on a minute level, everything is a miracle. But that aside, let's also say we hear an intuition in our mind, whether it's in meditation or not, that guides us in a certain way. And it was, sometimes those intuitions come and we go, really? Is that what I'm supposed to do? Huh, okay. And the more we trust that voice that comes to us, the more we learn that that voice is actually something we can trust more and more and more. And through experience, we're able to gain a deeper faith in God in that way, where faith is based in experience, not in blind faith, because this person told me I should believe this way. This path is not a path of belief. This path is a path of experience. And when we meditate, we gain that experience as well. Because we can experience God in our meditations and outside. I know I say meditation. Meditation is like going to the gas pump. And the pump is in the gas tank. And the car is sitting there. We're the car. God's the gas nozzle. He's in us. We're in Him. That's meditating. You know, we need that meditation to fill us up. But then, now I shouldn't say the gas nozzle actually goes away, because that's not fair, but we might not necessarily be sitting. And so because the gas nozzle is actually in us all the time, no matter what. But meditation is a concentrated way of getting that gas. And then we're doing our activities, and that kind of dilutes some of our focus and concentration on God while we're doing that activity. It can, it doesn't have to, but it often does. But feeling God's grace inside and outside of meditation also gives us that experience. We experience God in so many different ways. You know, we often talk about those 8 manifestations of God, and I remember when I first heard them, it felt so abstract to me. Okay, you can think of God in terms of light. You can think of Him in terms of peace, calmness, wisdom, vibration, power, sound. That's the power one. How else? No, sound. That is sound.
Yeah.
Joy and love. So it's like, okay, God, I would like to feel you as love. God, look, there's light. God is manifested in light. It felt abstract. But then, when you have a true experience of it, when you're meditating and you actually see light, and that light feels inspiring, when you actually feel peace, and that peace feels inspiring, when you get your first experience of inner joy that is not based on anything outside being okay. These are all experiences we have when we first feel the vibration of Om pulsating through our bodies, and we go, what was that? You know? But it all comes with an inspiring feeling, with an upward moving feeling. When we have those experiences, that also deepens our faith. Ultimately, it creates that union. And we also here talk so much about, I want to be free in God. When will I be free in God? And we have to say, what does that mean? There's no real out there of when I finally attain union, Because union happens incrementally. Now, it could be a big increment, depending on our circumstances. But even if we experience light in our meditation, that is a form of union. And so we can acknowledge when we're meditating and we see that light and it feels inspiring, that is a form of union. That is, it might not be complete union, but that is an aspect of what union is. And the more light we see, the more union we're experiencing, you see? Same with feeling wisdom coming into our minds. The more wisdom we're listening to, the more we can trust. Wow, that came into my mind, I did it, and that was the right guidance. And that did not come from my own desire. Then another piece of wisdom comes. Oh, that didn't come from my desire either. So that wisdom can come, and Swamiji gave us the Raja Yoga book. Autobiography of a Yogi is great because it has all of the Raja Yoga philosophy in it. And then Swamiji took Autobiography of a Yogi, which had that philosophy plus a whole lot more. And then he wrote a book like this that was just on the Raja Yoga aspects. Raja Yoga of Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga. The wisdom aspect, the action aspect, feeling that wisdom comes only from God, feeling our actions only come with God flowing through, and that bhakti, that love of God, those three things that we studied are the keys to understanding more deeply what living for God is. Because we understand we need a balance there. We use our minds, we hear through our brains, through our minds, that wisdom, that guidance that comes to us. When we act, we offer up every action we do. What does it mean to offer up? That means that we ask God, what would you do in this situation? How would you do it? What do you want to do? I'm your instrument, I will act, but guide my actions. And then with bhakti, we're trying to give our whole heart to God. How do we give our whole heart? We feel the love flowing so intensely. It has to go to God in order to give it to God. And when that love flows to God, that love comes back. And we experience bliss through that deep, deep love that comes. So Raja Yoga is so perfect in terms of helping us learn how to seek ye first the kingdom of God. And then, there's just those great stories. I was watching some guy who's a devotee and a movie star from a long time ago. And he said he always had this guidance in his mind that would say, yes, do this, no, don't do that. And he found that when he followed it, it was always right. So he followed it. Well, he was in a movie shoot, and there was a stunt or something that had to happen. He was going to be hung by a wire. And he told them that he got the message, the wire's going to break. And the guy said, no, it's not going to break. And he said, no, the wire's going to break. And so they did a test, and the wire did break. So they knew to do that. Well, then there was another stunt that he had to do. I can't remember the exact details of this one. But even that guidance came in through there. And it may seem like a miracle that he got so much guidance, but all he was more open and hearing and listening. We all get that guidance, but very often we just want what we want. I just want what I want. I want what I want. Be quiet, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. I want what I want. Just in this one thing, I want what I want, That's how we are, like little babies. And so anyway, this movie star was in a situation, again, I can't remember the stunt, exactly what it was, but he heard, that's not going to work if you do it that way. And so he kind of argued with the technician who was helping him out. No, it's going to be fine. And he thought, okay. He got in a horrible accident and died. And had one of those near-death experiences where he was able to, meet relatives or something like that and kind of find out the deeper meaning for his life. He said, from then on, I did not listen to that voice in my head from then on. So, that's an extreme example. But if you think about it, everything we do now, and it sounds morbid, but it's really not. Everything we're doing now is to prepare for a good death. It really is. It doesn't mean we're living in the future. I can't wait till I die and meet God. One interesting thing, I got on this little kick recently because I discovered a YouTube channel on near-death experiences. And every single person said, I just didn't want to come back. It was so wonderful. And then they said, and I can't wait to go back, but I don't want to go back unnaturally. None of them said, if I could just end it now, then I'll go back. They all were very willing to live out their life. Many people who have that experience come back with a sense of purpose in their life. And it usually doesn't have to do with career. It doesn't have to do with material. It has to do with loving others and sharing that love with others in whatever they do. And so we're always going towards that good death. And like in the Gita, those who worship lesser gods go to their gods, but those who worship me come to me. Master said that when we pass, he'll be there to welcome us into the astral world or whichever world we're going to be in. And so if we were to turn our backs on him and start pursuing only material things, and then I don't know if that's going to happen. That's not really like some threat or anything like that, but we're going to go to where our vibration is. If in this life, one of the things Swamiji and Master would say is that actually pursuing the spiritual is the most practical thing we can do in life. The worldly man thinks practicality is running to money and things to get that fulfillment. The spiritual person knows that the most practical thing is to put God first. When we put God first and live our life in that way, by listening to the guidance, by offering that love up, by trying to love others, when we live in that way, and then by meditating with Kriya Yoga and really going for it, which is what Kriya Yoga does for us, when we really go for it, then when we die, we're going to be that much closer to merging. And we don't necessarily merge after this lifetime. It depends on our karma and what we've done before that final merge. But certainly there can be freedom from this plane of existence. Master talked about how you go between the material plane and the astral plane. And then when you graduate from the material plane, you go between the astral plane and the causal plane. And then you merge into the causal. Now, we always talk about going into the white star of the spiritual eye, the center thing. That's the causal. So we do talk about that. So I can't say from experience that I know that means we bypass the astral plane when we're free, but Master came from there. So some people, I think, do that. I don't know about Swamiji. They say he's, not they say, but he's free. I don't know what that means completely, but all we can know are the lessons that are put before us and what we're supposed to graduate from now. So, most of all, life is not about just having those goals of, if I can just get this promotion, get that promotion. We know a friend right now who's going through a very difficult time with kind of a naughty boss that's being mean. And she's kind of afraid that he's going to obstruct her career path because of the prejudice that happens. We get so afraid of those situations. Like, I have my path in my career, and that jerky person is going to keep me from going where I want to go. We all have had that jerky person who we think is going to keep us from going where we want to go. But even there, we have to say, everything that comes to me comes from God. We have to start living in that belief. Everything that comes to me comes from God. There's that story of, I think it's Sri Yukteswar's disciple who came to him whose father was ill. Was it Sri Yukteswar or Lahiri Mahashaya?
I'm not sure.
Okay, so it's in the autobiography of a yogi. We'll pretend that it's Sri Yukteswar. One of his disciples' father was ill and said, "Please, Swamiji, heal him." And Swami Sri Yukteswar was like, "Well, we'll see." And he was gravely ill. "Please, I know you have the power to heal him. Heal him." "Well, let's just see." "Please, please, please, please." He just would not leave him away. He said, "Fine." So he healed him. And what happened? The father fell into a life of debauchery, drunkenness, all this stuff, and just threw his life away. And then he said, as long as he was suffering in that way, he was going towards God. "Please, God, help me." But as soon as he was fine again, he went up. And so that illness was right for him. In a way, that illness is the jerky boss that was bugging us, but instead it's the illness. That illness plays that role of guiding anything that makes us say, "God, help me." Is that good karma or bad karma? If a jerky person makes us feel that way, or if an illness makes us feel that way, is that good karma or bad karma? We so often, when we suffer, we think that's bad karma. When we're happy, that's good karma. But it's not necessarily that way. And so we need to take those experiences. This person's test, like all of our tests, like for all of us, is in a situation that makes us suffer, that makes us nervous or upset. Our biggest role as yogis is to face that test with calmness. That's all there is to it. Now that is so simple to say. But that's all it is. Because what comes from calmness? Guidance. But we can't get the guidance we need until we get the calmness. And so we want to cultivate that calmness as much as we can. And some of it does come from faith in God through experience. Some of that calmness comes from that. Because we think, well, is life going to be okay? Is life going to turn out okay? And as we cultivate that faith, then we say, okay, what is life being okay, first of all? Is that everything's smooth, nothing happens, just walk on eggshells, make sure that I don't make this wave or make that wave, and then everything will be fine. There won't be any change, and then I'll be safe. And that's just not life. Life is ups and downs. The circumstances are ups and downs. We do not have to go on that roller coaster. It's as simple as that. Yoga's chitta vritti nirodha. It's just as simple as that. It's calming those waves of feeling and neutralizing it through meditation. And Kriya Yoga does that. Kriya Yoga, as we practice, the more and more we practice meditation, the more we get separated from the ego naturally. We don't have to say, ego, get out of here, too much. Instead, just keep meditating. Keep meditating. That natural separation is going to happen. Our vibration will rise more and more and more. We will become more and more merged in God through our higher and higher vibration. We'll have experiences that help us know I listened to that voice and I followed it and it was the right thing to do. I've often told the story of how we came to Chennai, where, I was with Swamiji at least 20 years or over 20 years when he asked us to move here. Now, it wasn't the first time he asked us to move here. He asked us to move here in 2006 in Gurgaon. And other times than that, he has given guidance. And so I think I got kind of a mini God experience. I shouldn't say mini, it was a big experience. But by trusting Swamiji in the way I felt I did, I just knew that what he wanted and said was really actually for my highest good. And Swamiji even said that to Master. He said, what if I think you're not giving me the right guidance? And Master said, I will never ask you to do anything that God hasn't told me to ask. And we don't have Swamiji alive now, but we do have that inner guidance. We do have all of the videos and the books. We have Master. We have the living presence of these gurus in our lives. And so through all of that, I knew no matter what Swamiji asked of me, it was going to lead to my highest good and my deepest happiness. When we follow God's will, we are the happiest. And it's so oftentimes illogical. It's like, okay, if I move to India and sell everything and get rid of all of my cats and only bring 2 suitcases and come to a city I've never lived in before, and, that's very logical. Then I'll be the happiest I've ever been. It's true. Wherever God puts us, that's where we're happiest. And early on in my disciplehood, I asked Swamiji, I want to make this change, I want to make that change. He would say, I think you're doing fine where you are. And a part of me would be, when will the change happen? I think you're fine where you are. He did that to me for 3 or 4 years at one point. And he was right. I needed to develop where I was. I needed to stop running. We have a friend who hadn't seen Swamiji in over 20 years. And she visited him. I wouldn't call her elderly, even though her age is high up there. But she visited him, and one of the things he said to her is, when are you going to stop running? Very often we think, if I just move here, I'll feel better. If I just move over here, then I'll feel better. And you feel better for a little while until those same demons come and visit. Then you move over here. Then the same demons come and visit. It's like, finally, after a while, if we're not listening to God's guidance, maybe there's a little common sense that, oh, something's repeating itself. Maybe something has to change inside instead of outside. And so, we learn in these ways, but inch by inch, moment by moment, we gain that trust in God. The more inspiration we allow into our lives, the more we are guided by that inspiration. And we don't have to worry, when will I be free? Forget about that. Instead, it's just like in this moment, how deeply do I love God? In this moment, how closely am I listening to His guidance? In this moment. And then all the moments take care of themselves. Doesn't mean we're, clueless and don't have any goals. Of course, there's some practicality in that. But remember also, when those tests come, it's God's confidence that we're ready to survive that test. There's that saying, God never tests us more than we can handle. He never gives us more than we can handle. It's so true. Sometimes we're hanging on by a thread while we're dealing with that. The other thing, too, is as a spiritual community, we get to hear each other's stories also of faith. We get to hear about this happened in this person's life, and you get to see how it worked out okay. And you see another thing that happened in someone else's life, and you get to know each other, like, yeah, that person, wow, they really trusted God in that situation, and wow, they really trusted God in that situation, and would I have done that? It's interesting when the more we get to know each other, the more we learn from each other in that way. I remember early on, right in the very beginning of the path, in the U.S., we drive everywhere. And there's highways where you can drive 1 hour and go, 4 times farther than you do here because of less traffic. And so you can find yourself on the road alone very often. And it's not like there's dangerous people always on the road. Sometimes that happens, but not that often in certain areas. You know what areas not to drive alone, especially late at night. But I happen to have been driving early evening, so it wasn't quite dark yet, and my tire got a flat. And then it turned out, and I know how to change a tire. I've been driving for a long time. So actually, when I lived in Iowa, which is in the middle of the country, you can get your permit to drive at the age of 14. So I learned how to drive when I was 14. And then when my mother and the rest of the family drove from Iowa back to Washington State, which is where we're all from, which is 2,500 miles, I helped drive part of that way when I was 16. So anyway, I was driving. It was early evening, not a time a woman wants to really be alone on the road, even in America. And the tire is flat. I looked, and my own spare tire was also not doing well. So we didn't have cell phones back then, and I wasn't there long. I was near an exit. I could have walked off the highway to a gas station. That's often what gets done. But in this case, a man pulled up behind me, and he was kind of an elderly, jolly man. So I felt, for some reason, safe. And he said, well, I'll help you out. I have a tire store. And so he got me, somehow he drove me to his store. He fixed my tire, fixed the spare, brought me back to change my tire. And I was just like, how can I thank you for this? And he gave me his card and said, well, if you have any friends that also need help, just have them help. And it was like, okay, thank you. So, I mean, all of us have stories like that. And sometimes God is just saying, okay, time to think about me again. And sometimes it's like, thank you for thinking about me so much, but let's get the Vaishya consciousness out of it. Vaishya is so superficial. I give you this, you give me that. Instead, think of it more in terms of, I love you so much. This is why I live my life for you. And we want to just develop that love deeper and deeper and deeper. Because we're not that way with our own mother. Hi, Mom. If I sweep the floor, will you give me a ladu? We don't do that. She'd be insulted. No, have this ladu. Don't try and, do a bargain with me for my ladus. I guess I should say Mysore pak here or something more. But anyway, so why do that with God? And not that God gets insulted, but we want to just be as loving as possible. We're giving one last note. I have to stop, but there's we've been doing a class recently, and that was the Awaken to Super Consciousness class, and we were just talking about God and saying, do you feel as though, now I can't remember what he said. What was the question for? And he said, yeah.
Unconditional love, I have to earn it, basically.
Right. Do you feel, we gave a little quiz, and one was, I have to do something in order to get God's unconditional love or something like that. And one of the people in the class said, yes. Like, if I pray and please God, then I'll be favored. That's a very superficial way to address God. Instead, just, I love you more than anything. I am so grateful for everything I have in my life. And let's do this life together. And when something bad happens, the more we trust God, the less we are swimming around in the, oh my God, what am I going to do? And the more it's like, okay, God, tell me what we should do right now. Guide me in what I should do. I know you're there for me. Help me hear your guidance in this. And if it means I'm in the void, which means you don't get guidance yet, then you say, okay, I'm in the void, but I'm listening every moment to try and hear that guidance. And then the guidance comes. So just remember, step by step, give your life. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Such a beautiful phrase.